Welcome to this presentation of how to make your PDF-A conversion easier. Whether or not you have felt like that person when you had to make the decision of whether to opt for PDF-A1 or A2, I hope there are certain key takeaways after this presentation. A little bit about myself. I'm Akash Choudhary, product manager related to PDF-A side of things at Callas Software. And we are right there where the star is on the map, very close to the TV tower. And just to put things into perspective, that's the Berlin Central Station in the background. So if you're in the city, even after this conference, please, I welcome you to come join us for a coffee or lunch or more PDF talks. So yeah, before I get deeper into the different substandards, I want to make the point that PDF-A1 and PDF-A2, and in fact, all the substandards are in fact siblings. They share a common goal of self-containment and long-term preservation, which means that external content is forbidden. Fonts must be embedded, and amongst other things, JavaScript, encryption, movies, actions like movies, etc., they are also prohibited. To go into detail into how to make your PDF-A conversion easier, I think I have to go a bit in the background of PDF-A substandards. So PDF-A1, that was published in 2005, and the official designation you might know is ISO 19005. -1, and the year 2005 that is denoted in the designation as well. Now this version is based on PDF version 1.4. PDF-A2, which came after 6 years, similar designation, just the ISO 19005-2. Now, important to note here is it's not based on an Adobe PDF version. Rather, now it's PDF version 1.7, which is officially ISO 32000-1. We just heard from Bernd that PDF-A3, which was released just 1 year later for a specific use case. We all just saw it if you were here in this room. Also based on PDF version 1.7. And lastly, PDF-A4, which is the most recent one, came out 2 years back in 2020, and it's also based on the most recent PDF version, that is PDF version 2.0, or officially known as ISO 32000-2. Now, if you were using a system back in 2005, probably if it was an iMac, it looked like the right-hand topmost picture. And the system, if you remember, was very good for its time, but probably if you look at it from a perspective of when we are living now in 2022, probably there will be many applications that won't work as good as on a newer iMac, which is, you can see if you're also using iMacs or even PCs. So the thing is that IT has evolved a lot from the time when the first PDF version, PDF-A version, PDF-A1 was released, until now, which is the most recent one, that is PDF-A4. In this presentation, I will not talk in detail about PDF or PDF-A specific features. You might also know that PDF-A substandards also have different conformance levels. For example, PDF-A1A or A1B, and goes on until PDF-A4E and F. I will also refrain myself from using the term better in comparison. As I said, the main goal of all these substandards is self-containment, so they all are valid substandards, but yes, I will refrain myself from using the term better. Instead, what I want to show you is, I want to show you the difference from a perspective of a company that codes converters. So I looked into the support cases, and the differences that I will show you will be more on the basis of the order of complexity and going downward towards the order of frequency. So the first difference that I will show you after this slide is not as frequent in the support queues, but to resolve those issues, that is fairly complex. The first one, so PDF 1.4 specification, which is the basis for PDF A1 on the left-hand side, if you can see on the screen, specifies that the real values, the acceptable real values within a PDF file have to be within the limit of plus minus 32,767, whereas this has been increased in PDF 1.7, which is the basis for PDF A2, and there the value is much higher. These are specified in the PDF specification, but they're made mandatory by PDF A. That is very important to note here. I will try, since this is not my laptop, I will try to give a demo using this file. So just bear with me 1 second. Yes. Oh, I think I cannot because it's not a free. It's a free version of Acrobat. All right, I'll simply just use. I also have as backup some images here. So in this, if you run this demo file, if you convert it to PDF A1, you will see that it has some syntax problems, and you can see it from on the right-hand side topmost corner. There are some syntax problems which says real value out of range. In this particular PDF file, the high range was 65,000 something, plus 65,000, and the lower range was minus 44,000. And if we go back, we'll see that they are not in the range of the real values as shown here in PDF 1.4 specification. So there are products out there that will simply just report these errors, and they cannot do anything fundamental about these issues. But what they can do, what these providers can do, is they can simply convert this entire content on the page and convert it to an image. But if you ask an archivist, they will tell you that's not the most optimal way of converting a PDF into PDF A1. Because earlier, for example, there was searchable text, and now everything is simply just converted to an image. But at least it's an option. But there is another solution of converting it to PDF A2. When I convert this PDF file to PDF A2, the real values were well within the range, and this low-level issue was it did not pose a problem in converting to PDF A. There are certain more limits, architectural limits, when we talk about PDF 1.4 and PDF 1.7, which are the basis for PDF A1 and A2 respectively. For example, the number of device and components in PDF 1.4, only 8 are allowed, whereas in PDF 1.7, 32 is the number. Also, the length of a string in bytes in PDF 1.4, it's 65,535, whereas in PDF 1.7, there is no such restriction. There are some more limits, which are file size. So in PDF 1.4, the file size is restricted to 10 gigabytes, whereas there is basically no limit if you're using cross-reference stream. Again, I will not go into detail in the features, but for 1.7, there is no such file size limit. When I talk about page size or user units, in PDF 1.4, this limit is 508 centimeters by 508 centimeters, and in PDF 1.7, there is basically no limit, or you can say 381 kilometers, which is a very high number. Now, you can think of why this page size matters. Let's take an example of large format printing or airplane harnesses. Usually, airplane harnesses are designed in 1-to-1 ratio. So you cannot fit that harness in 508 centimeter, you can imagine that. So using user units, if the engineer, the designer is using PDF 1.7, that is easily achieved using user units. Then comes magnification factor. Small issue, but in PDF 1.4, there is a range that is 8% to 3200%, whereas it's much higher in PDF 1.7 from 8 to 6400%. Now, these were the, are you still using the Mac from 2005 is the question, and that is the message that I want to give from the limits that I just showed you right now. Peter said in the morning, I don't know if you remember, if you were in the keynote speech in the morning, that most of the publications or the recent publications that he viewed in the recent past, they were based on 1.4. And if you convert them to PDF A1, you can imagine that they will end up with some sort of limitations that will pose as a problem when you convert these files to PDF A1. So you don't have to stick to those narrow limits. You can definitely open up and open those lower limits and convert to PDF A2 instead. Moving on from the implementation or architectural limits, there are some features as well which are which are allowed in PDF A2 and not allowed in PDF A1. First one is transparency. So if you're aware of transparency, also known as show-through, so let's assume there are two objects on top of one another, and they can give you a visual of either show-through or a shadow. That transparency is not allowed in PDF A1, whereas in PDF A2 it is allowed. Next is compression, for example, JPEG 2000. So PDF can be really compact as opposed to their PostScript counterparts. That is thanks to the data structure, but also the compression algorithms that are now available these days. In PDF A1, these compression algorithms are not allowed, and in PDF A2, they are allowed. Next, talking about PDF layers, are also known as optional content. Mostly used in CAD drawings, or for example, you are sending your product documentation to different countries with different languages. You can switch on and off these layers. So I'm sending the document to Japan. They can switch off all the other language layers and only switch on the Japanese language layer. Usually used in CAD drawings a lot. It is not allowed in PDF A1, while allowed in PDF A2. And similarly, the last one, embedded files, not allowed in PDF A1 at all, whereas in PDF A2, only PDF A files can be embedded within the PDF A2 file. More often than not, we encounter this question of what about my PDF A1 files? Do I have to reconvert them to a more recent PDF A substandard, which can be PDF A4 or even PDF A2 or A3? And as I mentioned before, the main goal of PDF A substandards is self-containment. So PDF A1 compliant documents are still valid documents. They are valid and reliable archive files. And PDF A2, even if you reconvert your PDF A1 files to any other, let's assume PDF A2, it does not invalidate PDF A1. So my recommendation is that there is no need to reconvert your already archived files, which are in PDF A1 format. But another recommendation is to convert your new files. So have processes in place where you where you see new files and you convert those new files into PDF A2 instead of PDF A1, which has the limitations that I showed you before. Last, keep an eye on PDF A4. There are not many PDF 2.0 files right now, but that will change in the future. And keep an eye on PDF A4. As moving with time, it has more features included, and just like I showed you the difference between A1 and A2, PDF A4 offers much more. So keep an eye on PDF A4. That would be my 3 key takeaways from this. Now, I have talked about PDF A1, PDF A2, and PDF A4 a little bit. What about PDF A3 files? And we just learned from Bent, if you were here in the previous presentation. Just imagine an imaginary person had a teeny tiny accident, and there's the car that was left after the accident. The person contacts the insurance company, sends an image first, and the insurance via an email, and the insurance company writes back, oh, hey, here is a Word document, fill it in and send it back to us. And there is a lot of communication, communication with attachments like photos or Word files or forms, whatever. Now, the insurance company wants to have a process in place where they want to archive this communication. That's where PDF A3 comes into the picture. PDF A3 documents, as we know from Bent, allows you to embed any file format. And next, I would have a recommendation here as well to have a policy in place to control what type of embedded files are permitted in order to minimize the risk of preservation. So this is just the archivist within me that is talking, because you cannot have just any file formats that you would want to have in the final archived file. And another use case is email to PDF. That is also a PDF A3 use case, where you can keep the original file format as is.